This is Raquel Painter from Colorful Voices of Sisterhood, and welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingle TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingle TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingle TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, also on Smart TVs 2016 forward.
Good morning. Good morning. So this morning our topic will be on mental health, and we have Estrella Rogers here with us this morning, and I'm gonna let her actually introduce herself and tell us some about herself.
Good morning. So my name is Estrella Rogers. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I am also the owner of Without Limits Counseling Services, which is a mental health agency here. I'm a registered play therapist supervisor as well as a Christian counselor. So I work with children and I work with couples here in Jacksonville. So that's me.
Well, it's great to have you here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, mental health is such a prevalent topic, especially today. And I just think it's time that we as an organization, as a world, as a people need to bring more discussion to the table about mental health.
Absolutely.
Yes, it affects how we think, feel, and act.
Yes.
So what do you think mental health is, like mental health itself?
So I believe that mental health is more so on basically how we, number one, how we manage our symptoms and things that happen really in the mind to us mentally. So when we talk about physical health is kind of how we take care of our body and how our body function. What's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. Oh, gracious, I can't think of the word. But so for mental health, but it's just basically how we're functioning. So the functioning level of our mind, how are we functioning in regards to just the wellness of our mind?
That's a good word, wellness.
Yes.
Wellness.
Yes.
And you mentioned physical and mental. I mean, when someone sprains an ankle or breaks their leg, they definitely go to their PCM for help. And when something's wrong mentally, people tend to not do that.
That is correct. That is correct.
So I think that's what we really want to get out to people, that it's okay to go see your primary care manager and get the help you need.
The help that you need.
No matter what culture we're in.
Exactly.
No matter what culture
Exactly.
it is.
Yeah.
I also believe that some of us we not have awareness of what was going on, and we do know what's going on, but we don't know. Like you say, if you fall, if you get injured, you go to the doctor. Mentally, we don't.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
you seen hurt in your feet, you want to go to the doctor. Mentally, you don't know.
Yeah.
If you do, people see you as crazy. Like, what do you mean? The pressure, like we talk about the pressure, like, why are you so depressed? If you say what is so depressed, people see you outside, you looking good. It's not nothing wrong with you mentally.
Yeah.
But what is mentally is going on with us, that's what's affecting surround us. We think, we act upon on, and we see a lot of people suicide because of that, because they're thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that's why there's such a stigmatism on mental health, because it's not something you can see.
Yes.
You
Yes.
And if you don't experience
Yes.
mental health, it's hard for someone who hasn't understand what a person is going through.
Absolutely.
Or growing up with the stigma of, nothing is wrong with you.
Yeah.
You go on. I know that your wife, Sammy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you have kids.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we're dealing with mental health with children, how do you handle that? Because I think I heard you say you do stuff with children.
Yeah, so number one, I think one of the things when you're working with kids is to be able to identify that there is possibly something happening and that it's mental health, right? So sometimes we have to first rule out with anybody. We have to rule out and make sure that there's nothing physically going on. When you're talking about kids in regards to like school, sometimes it could be, there could be a learning disability. It could be that they're on a certain level education-wise or academically, and maybe they're not. So we talked about like ADHD, maybe they're not being challenged in the classroom, right? And so that's one thing. So we want to rule certain things out. The other thing is going to be, you also want to make sure that it's happening in more than one space. right? And so if someone says to me, oh, well, my child is, active in class, and I'm like, okay, well, they're acting up in school, but is there anything else happening anywhere else?
Yeah.
Is it only in school in that environment? Because if it's in school and it's isolated to that environment, then most likely, then we're not really dealing with per se, oh, your child has ADHD, or maybe there is something happening. Maybe your child is being bullied in school. Maybe there's an issue that's happening with their schoolwork, and again, like I said, maybe there's a learning disorder. Sometimes you may see kids that act up in class, but they may be dyslexic. Maybe they can't read what's happening on the paper, and so therefore the behaviors that they're exhibiting may look like a behavior disorder, but really what's happening is I can't read this paper. So
That's good.
we have to be able to kind of make sure that it's happening in different places as well, and not just isolated to one place.
Yeah. So I know there's probably a lot of parents that are struggling with this. What's the first step that a parent should do?
So I would say, honestly, the first step that any parent should do is, number one, talk to your child, right? And find out from your child what issues they're having, what is it that they are struggling with. And then after speaking to your child, I would go talk to a professional. You can speak to the doctor, so the PCM, you can talk to them. You can speak to the school counselor, find out from the school, is there anything that they're seeing, any signs or symptoms that they're recognizing. You can talk to a therapist, take your child to a therapist and sit with them. The first session normally, some people will do the parents first, and you can talk to the therapist on your own and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Is this something that I need to bring to a therapist? Or they may bring the child and the parent at the same time, and the therapist can make their own observations. But I definitely would say if any parent is having trouble working with their children or having trouble at home, then for sure seek professional help.
Yes, because it could be something, a trauma.
Yeah.
Something could have triggered death. Anything that could have triggered that we may be missing.
Absolutely.
So some of those are the triggers.
I'm glad you say that. So what age group we talking about? Like when we say is child, it's different age group. Kids go to and preschool. So what age? Some children, they are child to express or explain what is going on with. When you say sugar, sometimes it is sugar, and when they are different age group. When school is closed, sometimes daycare, you take the children, they are different group age kids there.
Yeah.
So it is really it's hard. It's not easy. We take it for granted. Our brain, we do.
Absolutely.
Because without our brain, I don't think we can function. We can do anything. It's our thinking. That's what is shaped us.
And I think that's why it's so important for us as a society to understand the importance of that, and it's okay to go get it checked out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, we take our cars to get their 3,000 miles oil changes. It's time for us to do something with our mind, because it's so important for us to need it, especially as we get older.
I will say really quick, just because you brought up the age groups,
Yes.
I would also say making sure that the person that you take your child to does work with children, right? And so you have some therapists that will tell you, no, I don't work with children. That's not my specialty. Myself, like I said, I'm a registered play therapist. You have some therapists that work solely with child trauma. So you have different types of therapists. You have some therapists that will work with kids ages 3 and up. Some say, I work with 6 and up, right?
Yeah.
And so you also want to make sure that you're going to the right place when you're looking for a therapist for your child as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right resource. Because if you get wrong advice, you're gonna get wrong and result. Is the same our thinking. If we're thinking wrong, we're gonna get wrong answers. So for me, you said earlier, we have to get to the point that when experienced people, if you are people like me, the trauma I experienced in my childhood, I didn't know. I know just family telling me bad. I was just running, acting up, but I don't talk. I don't say much.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just doing like busy child, they call it, right? But I grow up where we don't speak about certain things. And that age, like, okay, I saw people that was a girl that was suicide, taking their life, burning themselves. I said, no, my life worth it. And that, like, I saw age 9, I said, I'm just gonna run away. So, and because I chose life, I was fighter. I was like fighting through all that people, they see me like, oh, you're so nice, or nice way to say you're nice, but you are naive, because I taken a lot of
Yeah.
bullying, a lot of mean things.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say, we have to get to that point and say, you know what, I am important, I am needed.
Yes.
My life is important. If I leave this earth, everybody's life is gonna go on except me. So I say, you know what, Fatia, you love yourself. Say you do need help. I do. I still am in therapy. I went to psychiatrist. Say, what's up? What's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Listen, what's going on? You tell me. Let's sit down and talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the best thing they did for me going there, I learned things that I really did not know.
Yes.
I didn't even recognize my own trauma. Like they walk you through everything from your child, what happened to you, all this. When I was speaking, like those stuff, it was exist. It was
Absolutely.
me. You know, so what I'm trying to say for those people that experience trauma, abuse, anything, please, you are needed
Absolutely.
here. Your life is important. You get well. Guess what? Wherever you go, you take yourself. That's why I say, Fatia, wherever you go, Fatia come with you. So Fatia, she must have to be well. So we have to get to that point to say, you know what? I need help. This is for me. It's nobody else. You want to call me name? Guess what? You've been calling name before you know my issues.
Yes.
You go ahead, do that.
Go ahead and do that.
Yes.
One thing I do want to mention is the black and brown communities are disproportionately undertreated.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if it's because of our culture bringing up where it's just taboo to talk about it or what, but we can, because we've got a platform to talk about that. What do we need to do as empowering our culture to make this a priority?
Before she answered that question, let me read this right here.
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman's lifetime undoubtedly thought that bondage was better than risking death for the unknown. This profound statement that people could not be free because they did not know they was in bondage. So we got to know that we're in bondage.
Oh, that's
we got to
yes.
know that we have
That's
a
good.
mental
That's-
thing.
that's
Now I'll let you
good.
go ahead and
Yeah.
answer that.
Oh, wow.
That was just powerful to me when I read that.
That's
Yes.
No, and actually what I was going to say is normalizing it, number one. And two, when we get the opportunity to explain what these disorders are or what the different things that are happening that they actually are, it's important for you to be able to do that. So, for example, when we talk about depression and people in their minds are already thinking that depression means that I'm crying every day or it means that I'm in a corner stuck. And so now when somebody says, oh, well, you're depressed, and you're like, no, I'm not depressed. Like all I'm, the only thing that's happening is I'm having difficulty at work. And I say, okay, well, you're having difficulty at work. What else is happening? And then they'll say, well, I am a little disorganized from time to time, and I do have trouble like maybe picking up after myself. And I haven't ate in like the past couple of days. I really haven't had an appetite. And I may say like, well, how's your sleep? Oh, I'm not sleeping. And so then what happens is as we begin to talk about the things that we think are normal, they begin to realize like, wait a minute, I may be depressed.
Yeah.
Or I may be anxious, or I may be going through something without realizing it because I don't know the symptoms and I don't know the names of these things to be able to put it together.
Put it together.
Right?
That's right. Yeah.
And because we don't talk about it, right? Because just like you said, we go around as black and brown people, and everything that happens in the house stays in the house, right?
Yes.
We don't talk about those things. And so now you have children, you have adults that are going through all of these things, especially our men. That's like the biggest thing, our men,
Yes.
right?
Suffering in silence.
Suffering in
Yes.
silence.
They're saying what, 2
Yeah.
out of every 5 are on some type of mental health issue.
But we don't talk about that.
No.
We don't talk about it. It's not okay. And so we have to, and I will say this for me, I'm trying right now actually to really get into the schools and be able to do things because the kids need to know from early,
Yes.
right? They need to know from early you can
Yes.
manage your anger. You can manage your depression. This is what this is. This is what it looks like. My son is 13 years old, and he'll call me up. I don't think he'll see this. He may see it. I don't know. But he'll call me up to the room sometimes, and he'll say, I need my therapist, Mom, right? And so I know, like, that's the difference because that means that he's anxious. And he may need a hug or he may need something from me, but I know that means I have to switch my hat and help him do a mindfulness activity or something. But he had to learn that.
Yes.
he had to learn what anxiety means,
Yeah.
as opposed to him not knowing what the symptoms are. And then he's just sitting in his room crying in his own mind, like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? Like having these thoughts. But I had to teach him that's anxiety.
Yes.
And when that happens, this is what we do.
Yes.
And so now, when he has anxiety, or other people, when we have anxiety now, we get to a point where we're able to say, you know what, I can manage this because I know what it is.
You normalized it.
Normalized
it
That's
for
what
him.
you did.
That's
You
right.
normalized it for him. And that's what we have to do. We have to be able to normalize it. That this is okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is where we go from this point.
And then really I'm thinking, once you normalize it for the children, they grow up with these skills that help them as adults.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about, normalizing mental health, but in the Native American culture, I know we have a lot of substance abuse in our culture, and it's related to mental health.
Absolutely.
So if there's a way to is there a specific treatment for that? Is it like a dual treatment they have to do, or do you take care of the mental health first and then focus on the substance abuse side?
So we have licensed clinical addiction specialists, so they're called LCAS. And so the LCAS normally are also LCSWs, or they're LMFTs, or they call let me say this right, LMHCs. They just changed from LPCs to LMHCs, but
Whole lot of letters.
Yes, right. So they're normally a licensed professional, but normally also an LCAS. And so when they're treating individuals with substance use, they know which road to take, right? And so you want to actually work with the substance first, because if my mind is being driven or guided by a substance, then a lot of times then I'm not really being myself. I'm not showing up as my true self. So how do we deal with my issues if I'm not showing up as my true self?
Yes.
Which is, we tell clients all the time, you cannot come to session high. You cannot come to session drunk. You have to be sober in session, because if we're dealing with the issues, I need you to be able to deal with the issues, not whatever substance you're using.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
To mask the feelings.
Yes.
Because we got to feel it so we can get through it.
Because
right?
all of us are different when we've had a few drinks. We are not the same person.
Mm-hmm.
We're the
Absolutely.
same mind.
Absolutely.
So that's, that makes
So
a
I'm
lot of
glad
sense.
you say that. So what about for those that you want, when they come to see you, you want them to be normal, they can be themselves. So what about for those that take medication? So how that, because some of them take regularly and medication. So how you tell them the same thing, like don't take medication for that?
No, I do not tell them that. So normally,
So
no, I do not. So normally, if you're taking medication, and it would depend on the medication. So obviously, if you just came from the dentist or something, and you just had a surgery, and you're on codeine or Percocet or something like that, and you are I don't want to say out of your mind, but your mind is,
You're just not yourself.
you're not
You're
yourself.
not
Let me say,
yourself.
well, if you're taking that, you might be in that moment.
Yeah.
But yes, then I would stop the session, and I would say, we probably don't need to work today because this is not going to be beneficial for you. So yes, I actually would if that were the case. But when it comes to like the normal medication, so when I say normal, your everyday, like, ibuprofen, or if you took your mental health medications. If your mental health medications are causing you to act outside of yourself, so meaning you are, you'll hear people say sometimes they feel like they're just a zombie. And they're just like kind of sit in their eyes. And so if I notice something like that, then I will say, okay, wait, what's going on? And then if they say, well, I took some medication today, then I'll say, okay, well, after you leave here, you need to go and speak to your PCM, or you need to contact them immediately, because the medication is having a side effect that it should not have, right? And so it's not that you can't take medications, but if I see something, if I see that my client is not in the space for therapy, then I will address it. But I won't tell them not to take their medications, because their medications should actually help. If they're taking mental health medication, it should help, as opposed to hinder our work.
That's good.
Okay.
Reason I'm asking this question is, I'm not saying medication is necessary when
Right.
it's needed. It kind of keep you balanced
Mhm.
with to daily routine,
Right.
right? But however, if not longer taking that medication, because like you said earlier, it's very important for you to diagnose when you are normal, when you are with yourself, because that's how you deal with or know what is going on with the person. So if we keep taking this medication, we make it just our life. How that it has effect on to just our body because it has side effect.
So it depends on the person. So number one, when people come into, if they're seeing a psychiatrist, right? If they normally go in to see a psychiatrist, then normally they may not be on medications yet, right? So if they're not on medications yet, they're coming in to say, I have all of these symptoms, all of these things are happening. And so now that psychiatrist, or normally it's the psychiatrist that's gonna provide medications. Your PCM, depending on the medication, they'll give you some, but a lot of times they may refer you to a psychiatrist. So they've seen all of these symptoms, right? Then you have people that have been on medications for years. And so when they come into the office, I'll say, okay, well, tell me the symptoms or the things that you've been experiencing. And they'll say, okay, well, this is, I'm, again, appetite, sadness, whatever the symptoms are that they've been experiencing, and you can still diagnose. So all medication does not take away all of the symptoms. Medication makes it manageable, right? So if you have anxiety, it doesn't mean that you're never going to be anxious again, right? Everybody gets anxious. I don't care who you are, right? Everybody has anxiety, right? But some people can't manage their anxiety. So the medication then takes this anxiety and takes your thoughts that are running. It slows your thoughts down just enough so you can now utilize the symptoms that the coping skills that you learn when you're in therapy to manage the symptoms that you're having. So for some people, they'll come to therapy and I'll say, if we've done all of the tools and everything that we can think of, and they're genuinely doing everything, and they say it's still not working, I may say, then you know what? Maybe we can couple this with medication, see how that works, use the coping skills, get your body used to using the things that we need to do, and then we can look at taking you off the medication. And so everybody, you don't have to be on medication forever. Right. Everybody doesn't need medication, right? But if you can't manage it on your own, then sometimes you may have to go that route. But again, it's interesting because we have this fear of mental health medication, but a lot of people don't have a fear of physical medication, right? My doctor, if I go to the dentist today and he says you're gonna have to take this Percocet for X, Y, and Z, now I will tell you I don't like the way Percocet makes me feel, so I will tell him I need something else. But the first time I did, and he said you got to take this Percocet, guess what? I took that Percocet. I didn't ask any questions because I didn't want to feel that pain.
Right.
I just took it.
But once you know how it feels, then you know what to talk about, because sometimes it's an imbalance.
Exactly.
But it's like knowing your body. How do you deal with the anxiety? How do you deal with stress? Me, I like to walk. I have to walk. And you're right, I have anxiety sometimes. It seems like it hits me late at night. But I have to find a way to calm my anxiety.
Absolutely.
Down.
Absolutely.
Different ways. So people find different ways of doing stuff with that right there. Yeah. What do you think anxiety actually looks like? If you see me, you wouldn't actually could tell what my anxiety, what it looked like.
So anxiety looks like irritability, right? Anxiety can look like irritability. Let me tell you why it can come out as irritability. You could ask me a question, right? And in my mind, so let's just say you just say, or maybe you don't even ask me a question. Maybe you say, oh, you look nice today, right? And in my mind, what happened was you said you look nice, and I said, well, did she really mean to say that I look nice, or was she just saying that because she's supposed to say that? And why would she say that to me anyways? Because I don't understand why she really felt the need to say it. So all this happened in my head, and then I said, wait a minute, no, Star, you don't need to think like that. You need to slow down and think about it. And then instead of me just saying thank you so much, I may say, really? That's really? And I come off at you as irritable, frustrated, but you don't know what just happened in my mind.
It's all playing in your head. Yes.
Anxiety is exhausting. It's very fatiguing. It looks tiring. Anxiety can be looking shut down. So sometimes, a lot of times, you'll have people that will just completely shut down, and they're frozen. That flight or fight, right? And so they freeze. And because again, they're having this conversation with themselves, and I don't want to say conversation, but their thoughts are running in their mind. And so a lot of times someone will be talking and they'll say, well, I'm talking to you. And it's like, okay, but in my mind, I'm trying to process all of these thoughts that are happening, and you're still, so you think that I'm shut down, but actually there's something going on with me that I'm trying to make sure that I respond to you in an appropriate way, but I can't because I can't slow these thoughts down. The easy way would be, of course, people have panic attacks, right? And people, they sweat or they shake. Sometimes you may have somebody that may be shaking outwardly and you can see that.
Yes.
But a lot of times it can look like irritability. It can look like frustration. It can come in tears where, again, I'm having this battle that I can't control and you're wanting something from me and I can't give it to you. So it turns into all of these things in my mind that I can't control in that moment. So which is why we say take deep breaths so you can recenter yourself. You know, mindfulness right now is the big push. That's the big word everybody's using. And mindfulness is just being present. You know, it's being able to say, wait a minute, let me take a minute, let me slow myself down. What am I thinking? What's rational here? What's irrational? And so you're taking that moment, you're taking that time to be able to be present so you can use the coping skills that you need to use, whether it's music, meditation. You might tell somebody, if you came in and say, I may say, can you give me a moment to just process my thoughts? I may say that. And that's okay because some people have to take that time to do that, right? So anxiety can look different for different people. For kids, anxiety can look like negative behaviors. Anxiety can look like tantrum.
Oh, wow.
Anxiety can look when you have a kid that is speaking or talking back or just misbehaving. Anxiety can look like that in children because I don't know how to handle all of these feelings that I have. So as adults, when we have all these thoughts that are running in our heads, like at least we know, okay, well let me try to calm this down just a little bit. For a kid, could you imagine? Like all of these thoughts running, and as a child, I don't know what to do with this. So then my mom says, go do this. I don't know how to do this. So now in my head, like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, then now she's going to come in here and she's going to say this and she's going to do this. And, you know, for a child, and then all of a sudden you walk in the room and they say, I mean, the parent is like, you're not done. No, Mom, I'm not done. Like you get this yell and you're like, where did that come from?
Because they just played out the stressful
It's
situation
stress,
in their head.
Yes.
So for us, I have a child that's misbehaving. I have a child that's talking back. But have you ever sat down and said, what happens in your mind before you yell at me or before you talk back? What is actually happening? No, we don't do that.
No.
And it don't have to be just trauma because sometimes when a parent have another baby,
Oh yeah,
that there's a child that acts out.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Or they're trying to find out who they are.
Yeah.
You at a certain
Yeah.
age, they're trying to, that middle age group, they're trying to figure out who am I?
Absolutely.
And that's a big
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah.
Any,
Yeah.
any life
But then,
changes.
I'm even thinking, we mentioned a little bit earlier about bullying.
Mhm.
You know, getting bullied in school.
Mhm.
How what a traumatic event that is for a
Yeah.
child, and not knowing how to
Mhm.
deal with it.
If-
There's a lot of adults that don't know what to do if they're
Yes.
getting bullied.
Yeah.
I can imagine a child.
Children, sometimes you may have a kid that's skipping school, and you're like, oh, you're skipping school, you're in trouble. Why did they skip school?
Yeah.
Maybe on their way to school, there's somebody that's harassing them. Maybe there's something that's happening. But again, they don't know how to deal with what's happening because nobody's talking to them.
No one's talking to them.
Nobody's talking to them.
Yeah, they definitely need that. I guess that's where it goes to making sure there's a trusted individual
Absolutely.
in someone's life.
Absolutely.
If I could be a trusted individual, I'll make that effort to make sure they know I'm a trusted individual to come to. But if you don't have that,
Right.
And
yeah,
I think it comes with when you say trusted, you have to show to be trusted. One, you have to be vulnerable with the people that are vulnerable.
Yeah.
You have to open up to them so people they can come say, okay, I'm related to this person I can talk to. If you don't do that, if you show yourself as perfect, how I'm gonna share with someone that is
Right.
perfect sitting of
Yeah.
me? I have all this dark in me. How I'm gonna let her out? I can't because you did not show your vulnerability to sit down someone that already gone through.
Absolutely.
People around us all the time, family, friends, but really we don't talk about it. Why? Because I have friend or family around me, doesn't mean I trust them. It's hard. Like reach out to somebody.
Right.
I can reach out to everybody. Is that person is willing, really sincerely willing to listen to me.
Yeah.
We don't have that.
Yeah.
So that's the reason suicidal rate is high, because people feel like they are alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we are surround ourselves or our community or family that pretend to be perfect, and they don't show their own children when they've been through.
That's true.
Absolutely.
So if your children, you never told them your childhood and your teenager to your young adult, now you have children that go out experience something, they're not gonna come to tell you
Yeah.
because they think your generation was different. It's not different. We don't share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
part
we
of
don't
the
show
boogie.
that.
Yeah. That's-
So
And I think as mothers, all of us are mothers and grandmothers, but that's something that we need to start opening up.
yeah,
about.
talk
Absolutely.
It's
about it.
gotta
Like,
start
listen,
somewhere.
Normalize it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's gotta start
normalize
somewhere.
it. And
Yes.
when family is well, individual family, our community is gonna be well.
Yes.
Family makes
Yeah.
community.
Yep.
So if we don't have good family that gone through stuff, guess what? We're not gonna have good community,
That's true.
because our environment is very important, because we are producer for the next generation to come to our product.
Absolutely.
And it just, I tell my kids, like, you are special to me. I've been through stuff.
Yes.
But you're gonna go, if you don't learn something, you're gonna go to the world like you think you are the only one special. Life is gonna kick you. You have to learn how to cope, how to manage, and your anger and everything is going within you. You have to let it out.
Yeah.
And really, like in my Africa, I was gonna share with you guys in Ethiopia, in Djibouti, in Somalia. People fight, argue, or they say something about friends, and you find out that somebody say something to you. They don't take that anger to sleep. They're gonna come to your house. I'm not recommending people in America to do that, but they come to you. Hey, 9, 10 o'clock. It doesn't matter. Do you say something? This like it's not like, let's
Right.
go. They don't want to take that anger to
To
sleep,
sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that anger that we keep in, that is really what is
Absolutely.
causing us mental. You
Yeah.
see,
Well, it goes back to having those thoughts
thoughts
Yes.
through
going through
your
your head, and
and
you're not
rotating.
gonna sleep because you're thinking about this person. Say
Everything.
some of us, we don't want to share and how you feel about the person, even that person say something to you, nice way. I do that, and here in America, when people say something,
Well,
hey, let's talk.
That's
Diana
right.
mentioned
That's right.
earlier that she gets her anxiety at night.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm the same way, Diana, just listening to conversation, because that's when I'm laying in bed going through my stuff for the next day.
Yeah.
And then if something comes to mind, I'm like, grab my computer, like sending an email, Lisa, she'll crack up at that. She'll send me a text and why you up?
Yeah. I mean, it's important to, again,
You gotta identify.
Yeah.
identify
yourself.
the
Absolutely.
identify. For me, honestly, I deal with very difficult people. They might see but I communicate with them. People say things mean to me,
Yes.
I let them say. Then they hang out. A few days later, I call them. Hey, we should have
Yes.
handle
Yes.
better, because as if they are woman to woman, we should not talk to each other like that. Okay, and let's get
That's
that straight. Then guess what? I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
So I don't have any anger towards you. That's it. Let's talk. I
That's
think
a
it's
good
when.
boundary.
Yes.
Boundaries.
Yeah,
Setting
absolutely.
Boundaries and stuff. I'm going to read this right here. Poor communication and unresolved hurt could be addressed if there were so many layers of pain. It's an ugly cycle, but it's one that we can begin to chip away. So if we would normalize mental health as we do physical health, we take our babies to the doctor when they're babies.
Absolutely.
So if we would normalize it then, checking their mental health, find out what's going on, being there, being present, being able to talk to them about whatever is going on in life. Because I think it was said before, a lot of times even in our culture, what goes on in the house stays in the house, family tradition,
Yes.
family hidden secrets. But eventually there's going to be an outburst, and then we don't know how to handle it.
How to
Yes.
handle it, yeah.
And
And I guess that's another question, because you talk about families. Can there be generational mental health? Is it something that can be passed down, or is it just the environment that causes that?
absolutely, because and one thing you'll see is that one of the things when you go to therapy, they ask you about your family history, because it does make you more susceptible to having something. So depending on the disorder or the diagnosis, and so I will say this though, when we think about how to change that, right? What does that look like? So we have adults that go to therapy, right? We're trying to normalize that.
Yeah.
I'll use a small example. If you move, right? So this is where we're at as a military community, but so a lot of people are transitioning. A lot of people move. I have a lot of adults that will come into my office and they'll say, "Well, I'm struggling. We just moved," and so normally we call that like an adjustment disorder, right? And so they'll tell me like as they're talking that their kids are having issues and things of that nature, and then I think to myself, okay, wait a minute. As an adult, if you're struggling with this move, why do you not think that your child is struggling with the same thing, right? And so when you talk about generational cycles of mental health, our children see what we do, right? Our children see how we react to things. Our children also respond to the same things that we're responding to. So if we're in the same environment, right? So if we're both in an abusive environment, if we're both in a poor environment, whatever that environment may be, but as a parent, if you are being affected by this situation, why do we think our kids are supposed to be so resilient and our kids are supposed to just, suck it up and keep moving?
Figure it out themselves.
Yeah, and figure it out when we can't.
Yeah.
And so I think when we talk about these cycles, we have to get to a place as parents when we say, wait a minute, if I'm going through this, then I'm going to stop the cycle now and I'm going to teach my child how to deal with these things. And I'll have parents, and they will tell me. Like I remember, I was talking to a father one day, and he said he had anger management issues, and he was, I'm angry, and I see it in my son. And I said, okay, so help him. And he said, well, I don't know what to do. I said, well, don't you come here every week and we talk about how to manage your anger? Yeah. And I said, okay, well then take that home and teach your child how to manage his anger. I said, it's already in you, but you have to take what you've learned and teach your child.
Yes.
It's no different.
That's
so
good.
good.
That's so
Yes.
good.
So that brings me to a point, for our viewers out there, what would be a good coping skill? So if they're, having a child with behavior, what would be their first step as a mom, child throwing a tantrum? What coping skills are available?
So depending on the age, right? For sure. Deep breathing is like the first go-to, right?
Okay.
Again, depending on the age. So you can look up on YouTube, honestly, deep breathing activities, and then put in the age, because if we're talking like a young child, I would do, and I'm gonna say maybe like 7 and below. I'm gonna teach them something very simple like flower candle breathing, right? Flower candle breathing is really simple. You smell the flower, you blow the candle. And right, and so for a child, you're teaching them muscle memory and how to do that. You have to practice it though, so when they need it, you say, okay, flower candle breathing when you start to notice it, and they'll do it, right?
Yeah.
As they get older, so 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, you may do something like we call cookie breathing. Cookie breathing looks more like what we call guided imagery. And so you're imagining a cookie, right? You get to the oven and you see like, oh my gosh, I got my cookie out the oven. It's like, oh my gosh, it smells so good. Like, and so you've got this. And so we use those types of things. Now, as they get older, then I may just do a regular, like I'll say, okay, close your eyes, breathe in your nose, breathe out your mouth. I may have them do, they'll pretend like there's a balloon in their stomach and they're filling that balloon as they inhale, and as they exhale, the balloon deflates. But I would say the easiest thing would be that.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is being able to identify what's happening in their body, right? So when you have a child that's having tantrums, normally they can feel themselves like about to tighten up, or they can feel something happening. And so you may want to teach them and say, okay, before you get to that tantrum, tell me what's happening with you. Tell me, let's slow down so we can recognize the feeling. What happened before the tantrum when my palms were getting a little sweaty? I've had kids say, I feel like I have gummy bears in my belly, right? And so, but you got to ask them what that is. And so I'll say, okay, well, when you feel like you have that gummy bear feeling in your belly, I need you to go to the teacher and you give her this. Sometimes I'll use like a orange piece of construction paper, something small, but you give it to the teacher, and then the teacher knows that means that the kid is about to have either a tantrum, a panic attack, or something like that. They'll walk out. They go outside, they do their deep breathing, whatever coping skill that they've learned, and then they can come back in. Or maybe they need to go talk to the counselor. But you can set these things up for your kids if you have conversations with them and teach them what these things look like. Teach them to talk.
Yes.
After a tantrum,
Open.
and let me say this, after a tantrum, because and during the tantrum is not the time. Let me just say that, right? That is not the time. But after the tantrum or after the incident, sitting them down and saying, okay, I saw that you had some really big feelings. These are for maybe 8 and below, right? I saw you had some really big feelings. Can you tell me what those were? And then you share with them what feelings words are. Because there's more feelings than happy, sad, mad, and glad. Like that, we know those.
Yeah.
Right, but were they frustrated? Were they irritated? Were they anxious? Were they worried? Like, what feelings are they having?
Right.
Yeah, and so we have to be able to give them the verbiage to describe what it is that they're actually feeling.
Yeah.
I would like to go back to what you said, because household is very important, family, and we are mirror to our children. Like you said earlier, what they see is reflection. That's what they do, and this is for me. We want our children to do better. How? If you've never been better, how your children they're gonna be better?
Yeah.
But we tell them, I want you to be better. I want you to do better than me. Who is example for them? We are the founder for like primary
Absolutely.
everything for our children. I think as parents, we have to take it like we bring children to this world. Okay, and sometimes I say, God, I don't know how you trust us to give us another life. Some people, they cannot even take care of one life, and you give multiple of them. You know what I'm saying? So we must have to be primary for our children for everything. We are the teacher. We have to be better for our children to be better.
Yeah, and it's definitely the biggest responsibility
Oh, yeah.
we have.
Yeah.
Because there's so much, I mean, a child's life, my baby boy is going to be 32 in a couple weeks, and guess what? I still call him my baby boy because they're still my babies, no matter how old they are.
That's right.
Absolutely.
But like some of these tools, I wish I knew back then.
Yes.
I'm much smarter now than I was when I was 20 or 21.
Yeah.
Well, we're normalizing it now. We're getting the information now. We're not just keeping it, hidden.
Absolutely.
We're talking about it because things are happening. Suicide is rising in our young people.
Yeah.
Suicide is rising more in our black culture
Yeah.
than what they used to say. And, they used to say that black. I'm like, no, it's still happening. They just weren't
It's
talking
still
about it.
happening.
Talking about.
So now we're normalizing it. Things are happening. What can we do to change? What can we do to be the change agent?
Absolutely.
When we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we can be. I need your help.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm a life coach, but I have a therapist.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I've been married 30-something years. I still need somebody as a relationship coach.
That's right.
I need help.
That's right.
Yeah.
We all do. You can't just take it for granted
No.
because you see this smile on my face. Behind this smile could be stuff going on. So you got to have somebody that you can trust.
Yes.
Yes.
That they ain't going to go on social media and talk about you. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you read stuff on social media, I already know they're talking about somebody. I'm like, call that person.
Yeah.
You
Don't
know,
put their
Absolutely.
business out
But
there.
then-
You know,
I feel like that.
That's good, but you like something we have to tell ourselves individually and our brain. We have to train people. They will say,
Yeah.
they will say, but you cannot control what people saying.
Absolutely.
You cannot control them to type and saying. But we have to learn. Say, you know what you say about me is not gonna define me.
Right.
I am who I am.
That's
Go
right.
ahead, talk.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I,
When we get to that point, I think we will have better.
absolutely.
Mental health. Like we have to let it go. What people say
Right.
about us,
Yeah.
let them say.
But when you are 13-year-old Fatia that's dealing with that on
Yeah.
social media,
I
that's what
know.
I'm talking about. What's the coping skills for
Yeah.
that? What
Yeah.
I mean, you see a lot of stuff on social media. I mean, kids, breaks my heart. Committing suicide over comments made on social media.
Yeah.
And
So
then
I-
afterwards, they always say there was something was said on social media and nobody picked it up.
You know.
That's always amazing to me.
So what I will say to as we parents, you cannot control other children. Train your children to not go talk about other children.
Exactly.
And also,
Yes.
we have to train our children to be strong enough to handle what people has to say about them. I have teenager daughter, and I tell her like, "You beautiful."
And that's
Just know
why-
that you
You
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah, you
Yes.
beautiful. You accept who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Know that you are beautiful. So we have to give them tool
Yeah.
to cope those negative when they
Absolutely.
receive it.
Yeah.
know who you are. It's very
Right,
yeah.
important, you know. And I think that we should, every parents encourage the children to be kind to one another. And because it's needed for us, that's the reason we have children, another
Yes.
life.
Yeah, you do. And
So,
Yeah, and on that note, I definitely want to mention that the United States government just launched the 988 number,
Yes.
which is a national number for crisis response line.
Yeah.
That wherever you're at and you're at that point, just dial 911. Most everybody has a cell phone, if not borrow one from somebody, hop on a landline, but 988. Easy number to remember, like
Yes, it
911, except it's 988 for anybody who's in a crisis and needs some
Yes.
help on that one. So that's the Mental Health Crisis Service Hotline for the United States here. So I wanted to push that. I know we're wrapping up on our time now, but what an insightful conversation this has been.
Yes.
I mean,
Thank you.
Yes.
all of us are parents and grandparents, and just talking about mental health, especially pertaining to children, and the difference that we can and the viewers can make in a child's life will go a long ways, especially into adulthood for them. So definitely thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
for
you.
being
Yes.
here.
and I want to say thank you too, also for being here. But before we go out, you have a book that you have, that Prayers for My Husband.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just kind of want you to briefly talk about how that book came about in your life.
So to be very honest, the book is called
can
Prayers
show.
for My Husband, and it's a 30-day prayer journal. It is on Amazon. But the book actually came about because in my own marriage, we were in a time where we were kind of like in this space and not really knowing where we were going to go with this relationship, what we were doing. And I really began to pray, and I began to pray to God and just kind of asked him, what should I do? And he told me basically, he said, pray for your husband. And I said, pray for him. And he said, yeah, pray for him from the crown of his head to the sole of his feet for 30 days. And I wrote it. And without realizing that as I was journaling, I was actually writing later on what was going to be a book. But what I realized through my prayers, and I do want to say this, because when you're praying for someone, you're looking at them in a different lens. You're not looking at just all of the negative. You're actually hoping and you're having faith and you're believing that God is going to do something in this person's life, that something is going to happen for them. And we talk about in marriage counseling fondness and admiration. And if I am being fond of you, then what happens is we begin to shift and we begin to change. And so the testimonies from this book are actually really amazing because you're praying for your husband, like different body parts, like different characteristics of him, but you're actually beginning to see things differently even within yourself as you're praying for him. And so so that's kind of basically how the book came about.
That's
But and it's been a blessing.
And they help you with your mental and
Yes.
and physical
Absolutely.
and all that as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
yeah.
Yes,
Awesome.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we'll say get help.
Yes.
Physical, spiritual, mental help, get help. It's there. Therapist is there. Find out what you got to do to get your help. Get your
Absolutely.
physical help is important.
I do want to say one more thing really quickly for because I know we got to go, but for mental health, if you are struggling with paying, I do know there's a couple of resources you can go to. Open Path, that is a way that you can pay for therapy. There are individuals that may do pro bono. There's also interns, provisional license, and Psychology Today is another one. And Clinicians of Color has a directory as well. So there's a lot of places out there that you can go for help.
Okay,
Yes.
and we'll
All
share
right,
that
awesome.
on our
Yes,
social
sorry.
media sites.
All right, this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglish.ca for all your news and programs, Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download, but live it. Have a good day from Colorful Voices.